Good evening, and welcome to Conversations with Go On Girl Book Club. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to bring you on our second series in Conversations with Audible, the world's largest producer and retailer of audiobooks and other audio entertainment. This year marks our 31st year as an organization who reads, listens to, and supports authors from the African diaspora. Go On Girl Book Club is a literary sisterhood of dedicated, loving, reading, and listening women with over 500 members, 51 chapters in 16 states, and 40 cities who read a variety of genres written by authors of color. As technology has advanced, audiobooks have become a large part of our literary experience. Whether during our commute, at the gym, or doing household chores, we are held captive by each audible listening experience. Whether the narrator is the author or an actor, Audible provides a literary experience that takes the reader to a level that stimulates the mind by giving the literary work a voice. Audible is also working with some of the finest writers of our time to create Audible originals, audio-only stories that are written, cast, and produced specifically to be heard, leveraging the intimacy and performative nature of the medium. Today, we will be in conversation with actress, activist, and producer Erika Alexander, discussing the much talked about Audible original true crime drama series, Finding Tamika, which is available exclusively from Audible. It is an incredible listening experience narrated by Miss Alexander you're not going to want to miss. Black girls and women disappear every day, but not without a trace. Tamika Huston was a 24-year-old Black woman from Spartanburg, South Carolina, who went missing in 2004. Her case became a rally cry for other missing Black women in America and led to a growing demand to expose a system that ignores missing girls and women of color. In Finding Tamika, what we'll actually discover is the awful truth that a Black girl does not have to go missing for us not to see her. Erika Alexander is beloved for her iconic acting roles as Maxine Shaw, Living Single, Detective Latoya, Get Out, Cousin Pam, The Cosby Show, Linda Diggs, Wu-Tang, An American Saga, Barb Ballard, Run the World, and many more. Erika wears many hats, including actress, trailblazing activist, entrepreneur, creator, producer, and director, one of the country's boldest, most daring, and powerful voices. As co-founder of Color Farm Media, she's on a mission to bring greater equity and inclusion to both media and electoral politics. Color Farm Media, self-described as the Motown of film, TV, and tech, develops and produces scripted and non-scripted content for all platforms. Color Farm's documentary film, John Lewis' Good Trouble, won the NAACP Award for Best Documentary and was nominated for 3 Emmy Awards. A sought-after speaker, Erika delivers keynotes on topics including leadership, communications, and performance, and diversity and inclusion. Born in Winslow, Arizona, Erika grew up in Flagstaff before moving to Philadelphia. And I was just waiting for Miss Alexander to join. Thank you.
To work with many partners all over the world. Nothing stops in the way of us achieving that mission, not even war. And there's a need, people stand up and do what is right.
Sorry about that.
You good? Relax. Don't move. Very composed. That's some relax.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. We had a little technical difficulties, but thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So I just want to jump right in because I have so much to unpack with regard to this Audible series. And one of the things that you say when the series is beginning, you say a Black girl does not have to go missing for us not to see her. And I wanted to know what that meant to you, and pretty much what prompted you to even become interested in doing this series.
Yes, well, the series is about Tamika Huston, who was 24 years old when she went missing in Spartanburg, South Carolina. 15 months later, her body was found in a forest clearing, and a lot of even her own body that had deteriorated was not there at all. I got involved because a producer I know named David Person knew Rebecca Howard. Rebecca Howard is the aunt of Tamika Huston. And he'd known her from some work they had done together. And I think he also covered the story then as an independent journalist. And he brought the story to me because I'd done some work in Alabama with him for the Reese Taylor case. Anyway, we got to talking. He knew I had Color Farm Media, me and Ben Arnon, he's the co-founder, and asked would we be interested in doing some sort of audio program about Tamika Huston. And we said yes. We met Rebecca, and next thing you will know, we were on our way. And one of the first things that I wrote about it was that you don't have to, a Black girl doesn't have to go missing for us not to see her. And the reason I wrote that is because I've been in showbiz a very long time and saw very quickly that there were no roles for ingenues when I was younger. I was 14 and I started to act, and there were very few roles for young girls that weren't outside of either foster kids, slaves, or prostitutes. And we didn't see them then, and we barely see them now. We certainly don't see them when they go missing. And that was one of the first things that came out. But I think we can say that it's a truth because it's not just about when the person that goes missing, we don't see them. We don't see them when they're here.
So I'm personally very familiar with Tamika Huston's story. I know Rebecca Howard. We're good friends, and just dealing with that, it was a very emotional time period. I wanted to know from you if you knew what to expect when you were getting into this, and how did it affect you emotionally once you were deep in the project?
And I'm sorry for your loss. And I'm certainly sorry that you had to experience that because Rebecca Howard has been such a really good mentor to all of us and also found the way when there was no way to get her niece the national attention it deserved. But I had no idea what it would be about. I thought I would be telling a story, which I knew I thought I'd feel comfortable in that space. But the truth is, I was telling a story or helping to tell a story about a real person. And that's different with real living family members and relatives and friends. And you want to get it right and you don't want to get it wrong, but you also have, you know, to serve the story in a larger way because it couldn't just be a true crime retelling. We had already seen those things done. We had to find some sort of way to personalize it for the audio space. and it became a neo-noir ghost story. So trying to figure that out was partly because I went to Spartanburg, where you live. My mother used to live in Greenville, by the way. My sister still lives down there. And meet the people who knew Tamika best, her aunties on her father's side, her best friend Zelda Terrance, her ex-boyfriend, and law enforcement, and and a few of the other players who came into focus. And I got to tell you, I'm glad I did, but that's when I got scared. And I also didn't realize that Tamika herself, the ghost or from another dimension, had been talking to people. And that's where it really dawned on me, even though Rebecca did say that we were dealing with different dimensions, and that was unnerving.
So you actually mentioned you went out to South Carolina and you interviewed, and listening to the series, these interviews were really raw. And I'm wondering, how did you feel during that time interviewing people that were so connected and so close to Tamika? And out of all of the people that you interviewed, who was the most difficult one to interview, and why?
I was a pleasure to interview them all. Zelda, I was absolutely just, I just fell into her eyes, she had such depth and pain and tenderness. And I loved meeting Terrance, who was right out the box, just a, I don't know, all around, performer and character, but also very sensitive, and who had been hurt during this process because he was the first suspect. And he notably said, no one came back to apologize to me. He says, can you imagine going around for months and everyone in your town think you're a murderer? That really got me. I really enjoyed, and I thought one of the more difficult interviews was Tamika's aunts on her father's side. They were very forthcoming and hosted us. Contemplated talking to her father's sisters and what effect it would have on me, and the different point of view they had. It was the same. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Do you know what happened? I don't know.
Technology.
Woo! It is crazy.
Technology.
It's amazing when we think about it, what can happen instantly, but it's still, when it goes bad, we go, ah!
I know. And then I'm here like, oh, what am I going to do?
Oh yeah, no, you did it as smooth as Chris Rock. You just played it cool. So what I was saying was, they were a difficult interview because I hadn't contemplated her father's side that much, and it really frightened me. Some of the things I was starting to learn, and they were at the end of the journey down there, and that's when it really hit me, and I got scared. I got scared also because Tamika showed up so present, and when I came back on the plane, I was just crying, and I'm not a person who does that, and I was very shocked at the reaction. Then I went and got some crystals and whatnot, and tried to light some sage and clear the area, and asked Tamika to give me some space to tell the story and to do my job, and that I heard her, and that I thought I knew what she wanted to present, through this experience. But she'd have to, and the universe would have to let me have some space. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to work.
So this is an off question. You alluded that Tamika needed to be free. And throughout this series, you talk about her presence being there, and hence you having to go and get crystals after the fact. Not that you would know the answer, because none of us will ultimately know the answer, but I'm curious to know, do you think that she's finally free?
Yes, I think she was freed the moment she died, frankly.
Okay.
I think that that's a type of freedom, because
Okay.
however she was scared, or however she was not communicating, she was now in a space where that didn't matter. I think freedom in this thing means that that we understand more about her. It was really more about the communication between her and us, and being a warning and a herald for others. But I often said that Tamika, you know, is a different entity now, and we're still dealing with our mortal selves. Our brick and mortar is our flesh and bone, but she herself has been talking to us, and she put us all together. And she put you here to talk to me, and me here to talk to you. We're doing her bidding, but we're doing it because we've been called by a different. We're all trying to lift and push, and she's been encouraging us. That's all.
So Lieutenant Lamb, he's a really spiritual guy. And throughout the series, you talk about different things that are spiritually connected. And there's a reference where Tamika mentioned that birds were following her, and angels, and things of that nature. And he had a tattoo which said, and I quote, "It's the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the glory of kings to search out a matter." And when I listened to that quote during the series, I felt like Tamika was connecting everyone together. That was something that she was doing. And it was just strange for him to have that tattooed on his body. What were your thoughts as you were encountering these different symbols? I mean, the dreams, the key, the wallet, the carpet, the DNA. I personally feel that this was all somehow connected, that it was just bigger than just tangible things. And I'm curious as to what your thoughts are.
Thank you for reminding me of that quote, because I thought it was odd that he had anything tattooed on his body. He seems such a very straight-laced shooter. I have
Yes.
no tattoos. I don't. Do you have tattoos? You have a tramp stamp somewhere? You do? Oh, okay. I won't ask you. Okay. But it's very unusual, because he was so, and he wore that bracelet and whatnot. And so you saying that again, I had forgotten about what it said. Because we only wrote really the humble part, and be humble, and that type of thing. He had so much to say.
Yes.
Again, I was very impressed with the type of people that were inside of this one story. And it reminds us that there are different types of energy, whether we understand it or not, that place us together to sometime create sense out of absolute lunacy and nonsensical things. And so I don't know what it means. I know what I think those things mean, and I think they're connected. I'd like to believe it, but I also believe that sometimes things are just really what they are, that we attract energy, and that energy comes together. So I'd love to know what you think. What do you think about it?
I don't know if you can hear me.
I can.
So I think that it was some sort of divine intervention, the way all of the pieces came together. I don't think it was coincidence at all. I really think that there was a stronger power behind all of these different things. And although it took some time for all of the pieces to come together, I do think that there was a force that was saying, we have to put this out there and connect these pieces, and everything else just fell into place.
Well, I'll go with what you say, because
Okay.
because I'd like to believe that, and maybe there's a part of me that believes in thing again. I'm not religious, so I try not to be a hypocrite, but I've seen and experienced things that there's no I can't explain. But what I can say is that just because I can't explain it doesn't mean that phenomenon isn't there.
Right. And I was aware about that because you had mentioned that with regard to your not being religious, but I do think, but you did get crystals. So I do think that there is some connection to something. It doesn't necessarily have to be religious or, you know, religion per se, but
Yep.
I do think that there are powers that make certain things happen when
Yep.
they happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do too.
So I really don't want to bring him up, but I cannot not bring him up, Mr. Hampton. He was interviewed or provided his information, and, you know, he has no regrets. He seemed very disconnected from everything that occurred, and is, in my opinion, very delusional, but that's neither here nor there. I would like to know, whose idea was it to contact him and to interview him? I mean, unfortunately, he's an integral part of the story, but whose idea was it to contact him?
Well, we went back and forth with this, and very wisely, because it was up to Rebecca whether or not that would happen. For one thing,
Right.
she was our conduit to most everybody, but also it was a personal decision. And I think at first she really did not want him to be a part of it. David Person, one of our producers, is eventually one of the people who was the person who made contact. And I think it was decided that we were trying to tell Tamika's story, but unfortunately, he was part of that.
Right.
So you don't want to center him. But if everyone's talking about a person who's there but not there, then it does get difficult, because we still had to write about him. James T. Green was our executive producer, and he brought the Sonic team, collaborative Molson Hart there, and they are excellent. Now, he also co-wrote with me the script, and Rebecca had laid out an amazing timeline and factual representation of it. But there was always in those things a reference to her murderer. And we had to say his name because that's how this thing works. And so after a while, it was like, maybe we can interview him, and then we'll see if the interview comes in, how we feel about it. And that's how we approached it. At first, we would just see. And David Person got in touch with him, and he wrote back. And then we sent him a release, and he signed it. And he wanted to be involved, but if you hear the audio story, you know that he's likes to tell stories. He's loquacious. He's that's very much who he is. And you should
Right.
know those letters were very well written. I mean, you were dealing with a person who was, you can at least see, educated in a very formal way. But past that, there was some true lunacy under there, maybe because of the simplicity of what he was saying and the fact that he was so effective with his words, because he was so efficient with them, that overall you got that he didn't believe he did anything wrong, and he would vacillate between saying yes and then shutting it down, saying no. There's no way, if you were not her murderer or killer, that you could show people where she is in the
Exactly.
forest. So the fact that he's waiting to be exonerated is nuts. Who would allow that?
Right.
But that's who he was. But that's part of the story, though. Part of the story is that she did not recognize the type of person she was dealing with. And I think that she overestimated her own ability to be in the presence of that person. Now, nobody can know if somebody's going to go off and do something heinous towards you. I'm not saying that she should know that, but I'm just saying that's what she was dealing with.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, but you're right. Listening to that portion of the series, it was just mind-boggling that he agreed to be a part of this, but is still stuck in a different phase where he just doesn't, he's very disconnected from everything.
Yeah, you saw that part where he's talking about je regrette rien. I don't regret anything. And
No,
he's playing that every day.
Exactly.
And he's blocking off his view of the bars, so he doesn't even have to see he's there.
Yeah.
Which is really fascinating when you think about it. He can't contemplate the fact that he's in there. And
Right.
he's saying, I don't regret anything. And I know you heard all the other things he said, but I look at that and I'd have to be made of stone not to feel something. But I also know that I don't want to be able to feel something for somebody who was so divorced from a vicious
Exactly.
crime like that.
I agree. It's just crazy. Another topic, white women syndrome. So this all came about, and the late Gwen Ifill coined that phrase. And I'm wondering, with this series, you're bringing light to something that I personally believe is still occurring nowadays. I don't really think, we do have the Black and Missing Foundation, which is doing great work, but it still seems like there's a lot of work that needs to be done. How do you think your series will help with getting the word out about white women syndrome, and maybe down the line effectuating a change so that no matter what color, race, creed a woman is, if she's missing, we'll all be taken seriously?
Well, missing white women syndrome is the syndrome that Gwen Ifill talks about. And it's a phenomenon that, if people pay attention, that we're not saying that the white women, or whatever woman, whatever color, doesn't deserve whatever resources everyone has to find her. We're saying that it's the exclusion, it's to the exclusion of Black and brown and indigenous women that this happens on a national level. And it's been going like this for decades, and on and on and on, and that it's unacceptable, and that we need to do something about it, as not only ourselves personally demanding these things happen, but as a nation. And if you cannot protect your most vulnerable people, which are women overall, whether you're what color you are, a trans woman, there are all sorts
Right.
of heinous violence things that happen that we don't protect them from, then we can't be the greatest nation in the world. That we must protect women and children and the most vulnerable, disabled, trans, differently gendered, elderly. These are the types of things that promote what a first world civilization should be about, is how you can protect those people. And so it's important that we look at the context of when Ifill started talking about these things. She was talking about it in the 90s because she had observed a pattern, and she came up with the name Missing White Women Syndrome. And yet here we are in 2022 still talking about it. And
right.
so we're in trouble, because if somebody sounds the alarm and then we're still talking about it now as a phenomenon, then shame on us. And that's why Tamika's story is a warning, and she's a herald. She's the ghost of Christmas, past, present, and future, telling us, wake up, wake up. It's a story about not only her own life, but the lives we live, and what we allow to happen to others, especially the people who are the most vulnerable, will eventually come to bring us all down.
I totally agree with you. You referenced Rebecca's tenacity, and she really pitched really, really hard to get the story told, and had to switch her pitch because she wasn't being heard. And I wanted to know, what do you think? There are a lot of families out here that don't have her background, don't have her experience, don't have the resources to be able to do what she did. And I know it was very difficult for her, considering everything, her experience, background, resources. What would you tell a family that's in this predicament? How would you guide them? What would you tell them to do if one of their loved ones went missing and they didn't have any of that experience to tackle the media and just get the word out?
Well, the first thing I'll say is, God help you. And that's real. Because just because we're talking about it now doesn't mean that there are better resources and options that, out there. There are people trying to do their best to change the laws, to actually offer resources, to put funding there, to specifically find and also bring stories to light, but also to give help to the families during and afterwards, because many of them are traumatized for life and do not get the help that they need. But also there is the Black and Missing Foundation. It was started by two women, one of them from Spartanburg, South Carolina, Dereka Wilson, and her sister-in-law. They've been doing great work. So you should go right there and use the resources they have and ask them questions. They really have been doing great work. We should all support and donate to these organizations and lift them up. And we should also ask our representatives. You don't ask because something's happened to you. You ask because if it does, the resources are there. So what you do is you pay attention and say, it doesn't have to happen to me for me to advocate for these things and get out in the streets and tell people and learn and educate yourself about what's missing. It's not just that the girl and the women are missing. It's that the whole system doesn't support a missing person's unit. We need to rethink not only policing, but we need to rethink how we go about social services. And that's what they've been asking for, especially during this time of George Floyd, for us to rethink our tax dollars and start to reorient ourselves around the idea of public mental health, wellness, and also service and policing and security. And so that's what we need to do.
So I'm going to shift a little to the Hustons. You opened talking about Serendipity Lane, where the Hustons, Anthony, Joanne, and Antonia resided, and ended the story with that conversation. Serendipity means the occurrence and development of events by chance in a happy or beneficial way. However, the manner in which both Tamika and her father's life ended is far from that. What, if anything, about this series would you say is serendipitous?
Well, here we are. I think that's serendipitous, you know. I wouldn't have met you in this way as personally, because you're related to Rebecca and, as a friend. And I think that's serendipitous. I think every day we move about and find ourselves part of a conversation or a movement or an action, that's serendipitous. I think that the saddest part about that, one of the saddest parts about that story was that it didn't end. It kept going, the tragedy and the trauma and the heartache and just the madness, if you think about it all. And it had more victims in its wake. And so therefore, I think that in the end, we were probably actually born for a moment like this. And we are in a very interesting social experiment in crisis, not only in America, but around the world. We're also dealing with a plague. We're not just dealing with a plague that's a virus, but we're dealing with the plague of the human heart. We're in a moral crisis. It is amoral to allow this to keep going and do nothing about it. And we must have a moral revival. I am a great friend and disciple, if you will, me not being as religious, of Reverend Barber, William Barber of the Poor People's Campaign. And he asks us to have a moral revival and to get not only the democracy back on track, but to force people to deal with the morality and the amoral policies that have forced us in this situation. And we all need to put our shoulder to that and push against the headwinds and the apathy and people's wanting to be jaded and tired of it. No, everybody's the same and politicians. That's not true. It's only true because it lets you off the hook. And if you're left off the hook, then you have to just deal with it as it is. What comes, what made. But with everyone else, it is serendipitous. If we are all talking about it, that means we can do something about it. And we can do something about it. We can change things and have a different world. But first you have to be human. You have to care. You have to want to care about somebody other than yourself. Again, it does not have to happen to you for it to matter. But I can tell you what, God forbid it does. You can say, well, at least I tried.
Amen.
Amen.
So I just wanted to say that this series was very powerful, And for those who
Thanks.
have not had the opportunity to listen, although we dropped a few spoilers, there's so much more. You can definitely go to Audible and check out Finding Tamika. I will ask you, it appears that you left the door open somewhat for future projects dealing potentially with missing Black women or other drama type series in the works. Is there anything that you can share with us that may be in the pipeline?
Well, what I can share is that we're all now in talks and discussions about that and whether there is a future. I'd like to hope there is one. It's difficult to contemplate how it'll come about and in what form and what medium. But I believe that if anything, this would bring about would be some sort of way to continue to have focus and conversations, but also tell these stories. So that's our goal. Rebecca Howard is a great leader in that space for us. And film and television is what I do, you know, so at least we'll now be working in medium. I understand the audio thing I had to learn, and I'm doing my best to learn from the best. The people who came to do with this are the best: James T. Green, Moulton Hart, Kevin Hart, Charlamagne the God, Audible, SBH Productions, Nicole Shelton and Aisha Chaudhry, certainly Rebecca Howard, David Persons, and Ben Arnon. These are the people that we've been working a long time now together. And we've had a lot of bumps and obstacles, you know. We've had people run away from the idea of how we wanted to do this because they thought we were doing it wrong. They thought I would harm her. And I said, I was so insulted by that.
Right.
I'm like, in my life, I would never, if I could help it, harm a woman, let alone somebody that I was trying to lift up and tell her story. But we had all sorts of things to deal with. In the end, if there was another way to go on, that would be great. But we have to now, it's all in the manifestation part, like the idea parts. Let's see what happens.
Well, I'm glad that you overcame all of those obstacles and were able to put this series out, because it's a very important story that, you know, needs to be told, and awareness definitely needs to be made. So
can I ask you a question?
Sure. Since I've been asking all the questions.
Oh yeah, I would love to ask you a couple of questions about the series, but
Sure.
there's a 10 parts to it. Number 8 is and one that's done in sound and music sort of tribute. What did you think of that? Because that was actually James T. Green who pitched that, and we all said yes. And what did you think of that?
It's funny you asked me that question. That was one of the questions I was going to ask, but I was looking at time and I said, well, I'll cut that one out.
Oh no, time is good.
Okay. So the music part was good. It kind of made it seem like a drama, you know, when if you're watching something on television and they have the music in the background. I was just, so that part of it was fine for me. I enjoyed it. It kind of made it more than just if you're listening to an Audible book, it's just the person speaking. So the music kind of added a different element, which I personally enjoyed. I was curious about the interlude. So near the end, there's an interlude. I don't know how long it is, but it's just music. And I was wondering, was that more to have the listeners meditate or just take it in, or, you know, what was the story behind that? I just listened to it and got deep in my feelings, all emotional. That's what happened to me. But I was wondering, what was the premise behind that interlude, and what did you expect the listeners to get during that portion of the series?
Well, someone just wrote that they said it added to the ambiance and the tension, and that's exactly what happened. For people who have seen it, you'll know that it comes to a point where that's a natural place where we thought we could use a break, that we had gotten so much information and had experienced so much that if we were going to have an audio experience, the one thing we should use was less talk and more sound. And
Right.
Rebecca had provided us with home movies of Tamika and the family and them talking, so you could hear the audible that we pulled from there. And then Chad Curie, who is the composer, put it all together, and put it all together with the mysterious part again, because Tamika is speaking from another dimension and she's represented in sound here. So I think what we wanted the audience to have was exactly what you thought, a break and meditation, but also we were going to then race to the end, that we were going to then introduce the murderer. We were going to
Okay.
introduce the court case. There were a lot of things we had to do. We just couldn't wrap up.
Yes.
And so it gives us a chance to take a deep breath. And it was as long as any episode, because it was one episode. One episode belongs just to that. And that's
Right.
sort of to just sort of clear the air, say, let's all just take a break and remind ourselves we're talking about a real person. So if anything, it's a living audio eulogy to Tamika.
Someone asked, where can this be seen? It can be heard.
There you
It's
go.
called Finding Tamika, and it's on Audible. It's an original Audible series. So if you go to audible.com, you can, if you have a subscription, if not, you can purchase it, but it's called Finding Tamika.
Yeah, audible.com/Finding Tamika, and you'll go to it. And we'd appreciate whatever listener and or recommendation. And also it really helps to rate it and tell us what you think. It really matters.
Yes, it does. But it was a great series. I'm not a super audio book person. As a member of Go On Girl, I do read books, but certain books I do enjoy listening, depending on who's narrating, if it's the actual author or someone with if it's a man with a sultry voice, you know, things of that nature. But I really enjoyed listening to the series a lot. You did a phenomenal job. Everyone on the team did a great job. I'm not saying it just to say it. It's genuinely sincere. I actually listened to it more than once. It really was very striking, and I think it's very important to continue to get stories like this out. So whatever your future plans are, I know you said you're film and you're great at that, but I think there's definitely a niche in the audio world for you as well.
Thank you. I hope to continue to create an audio space. For one thing, it goes way faster than film and television, which can take years off you. By the time you're done, you've already like Rumpelstiltskin, you know, just, you know, several lives and so children just to maintain. But but also
someone said they enjoyed your voice.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Hello, Disney. I enjoy doing it. And the other thing is that we also, again, it was a really great creative team. I also really like the idea that we knew that the audio and the Audible listener would be me. I had never done one. So I really hadn't listened to them either. So I didn't know what it couldn't sound like. I just knew that we should make it as interesting as we could for ourselves and hope that other people dug it, you know, really. And you want to, but I thought this doesn't end. We package it together, we present it, but the fourth character comes into play. The fourth character is always the listener. And I talked to the listener throughout and said, you know, I relate to, and I wanted to, because that's how I heard it in my head, that I'm not writing to no one, that the people who come to listen have decided to be there. And so that means that Tamika had called them and that she wanted to acknowledge their presence. And so I should too.
And one of the things I actually enjoyed were the trigger warnings right before each, I guess, section.
Episode.
That's what it's called.
Their episodes, yeah.
Yeah, the episodes. You put out these trigger warnings for different topics, and I thought that was very clever. Was that something that you came up with in the beginning or during, or how did that come about? Because it's important. There's certain people that certain topics will trigger them, so you're letting them know this deals with suicide or, you know, things of that nature, just to let people know if they want to, I guess, skip or just prepare themselves.
That's right.
Before listening.
I think it's how you play fair with your audience. that we're not in the horror business, and these are real people, and they're real people on the other side. Again, it's a conversation that you're doing. It's a social contract. So first of all, I'd like to say that I think it's part of Audible's policy that if there's something that's difficult, that they do it. Maybe that's something they do legally, but it was also something we wanted to do because we only had to do it really once. We could have done it at the top of the series and then just let it go. But James T. Green was very adamant that we included each time. And at first I was like, really, James? He was like, yeah, Erika. But then that's when we said, okay, well, we don't always have to say the same thing. And I don't have to take it so seriously every time and just lay it in. I'll say, now you've been told, let's go, and then we go on our way.
Yeah.
So people understand also that each one is refreshed and we're aware that we're telling you. And now that we've done it, we're still going to move on. We've got to move on, but prepare yourself. And I think that it comes down to, again, it takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a nation to find one.
Right. That was a great introduction for each section of the series. Yeah.
Thank you. See, those are the small things, the details.
Yeah,
no one's ever said that. So I really appreciate that you'd say it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, we, Go On Girl Book Club, really appreciates you giving us your time this evening. I know you were just at a town hall and had to run over here to join us for this conversation.
My pleasure.
So we really appreciate the time that you took, and thank you and everyone that was behind this series. It's something that we hope that you can continue to put out this type of content.
Thank you. And please, if people are interested in that, I'm at Color Farm Media, www.colorfarmmedia.com. Go there, sign up. When I'm doing new things, I'll let you know the types of things we're doing. We've been doing a lot of work and workshops around the country to try to empower creators to make their own work, but also to fund and how to crowdsource, how to do those things. We plan to do more of those things, especially because the COVID restrictions are coming up. But we also have a commitment to the community of artists that are out there, lifting their voice, but also creating new things, the new Shakespeare's, the new August Wilsons. They're all out there doing wonderful things, whether it's in image work or audio work or vocal, whatever you're doing. And we want to make sure that you're in that. And also, me as an actress, I'm doing the same things I've been doing, like Run the World and Wu-Tang. But also, those are 2 series I'm in, but also 2 new series. Swimming with Sharks, excuse me.
That's can you went out for a second, so I need to repeat
somebody
that.
called me, and I was on Roku, and that will be out on August 15th. And then also Shining Girls, which is about missing women. It's Elizabeth Moss series. She's amazing. She writes, produces, and stars. I'm a co-star in it, and it was a pleasure to work with her. She did The Handmaid's Tale. So we're out with our new series, and that's on Apple TV. And, you'll see us out there doing more stuff, Color Farm especially. We have a partnership with G Unit and 50 Cent on a DC comic hero called Zero, from the man who made Black Panther cool, Christopher Priest. So we're out there doing, that's going to be a film franchise. We're really excited about what's going on.
Well, your plate is really full, and we're all looking forward to all of these different projects that you have in the works.
Thank you. And thank you so much for your beauty. That smile was worth $1 million to come on and spend this time.
I might log into Color Farm Media and see what's going on.
Please, we'd be honored. We're honored. We're honored for any support we get. And ongoing, we do our best. Even if you don't think it's our best, we really are out there trying to change the face of media. And thank you so much for helping us. And I appreciate the opportunity.
The website, it's colorfarmmedia.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Colorfarmmedia.com. Join us. And no, we don't, it's just literally us. And when we have stuff going on and, you can say, hey, they're doing a tour around the country. Because we went to Compton, Raleigh, Atlanta, Chicago, Philly. We did 10 different cities where thousands of people came out, and we taught them the crowd uh, uh, funding skills, and it was great. And 49 pilots got funded, and they raised over $250,000 for themselves, not for us, for themselves. It was great to see that. But what we saw was that there were many people out there, older women coming in with workbooks, and homeboys with big things around their neck talking about, Miss Erika, I got a story to tell. I'm like, I know you do. They have stories they want to tell, and books they want to write, and all sorts of things they want to do. And there's more than one way to do it. And so my thing is if we can get a nation doing that, we can turn the tide. One of the things we stopped listening to was each other. It's easy to hurt people that you don't feel you're connected to, but we can't afford to do it. America is about connection. It's about diversity. We have each other's blood running through us, Irish and Scottish blood. However it got there, it's in us. And we need to take these stories collectively to the world and be the first-rate culture makers that we are together.
Definitely. So again, thank you so much, Erika, Miss Alexander, for your time this evening. We really appreciate you. We appreciate your work on the Finding Tamika series, and we look forward to all of your future projects.
Thank you, and see y'all later on this book club.
Maybe I'll have a book. Everyone for joining us this evening. Be sure to follow our Instagram page, as we will be having future series and conversations with other authors and different people. Thank you so much, and everyone have a great evening.
Good night.
Good night.